Challenge 9 is the third of our activities series. We did assignments, we did discussions, and now we're doing quizzes. So let's heli on and get started. So if you used assignments, tests, and surveys, ATS feature in Lalima, there's a slightly different migration process than if you just simply used tests and quizzes. So those were two different areas in Lalima. One of them was older and did things the other didn't do, so you might have chosen one or the other. Be sure to follow up if you used assignments, tests, and surveys with the link to see the nuances of what happens when you migrate, or ITS tries to migrate, assignments, tests, and surveys over from Lalima to Lamaku. If you use a question library, you're going to want to check that all of your question pools from Lalima came over properly and are set up and named properly in the question library. In Lalima, in tests and quizzes, for example, there are question pools, and if you had question pools, they would show here. You want to make sure that when you come to quizzes and then go to question library, that all of the folders that you saw in Lalima are also represented here. So you would double check whatever folders appear here would appear both in the index view on the left side and also going up and down the main question library panel. And the same is true if you used assignments, tests, and surveys. At the top in Lalima, you would see question pools. You'd also want to make sure that any of the pools, any of the folders you have here also are seen in Lamaku in the question library. It might take some reorganizing, so it's just worth taking a look now versus panicking when you give your first quiz and realize things aren't set up as you hope they were. If you have quiz questions that include images in them, you're going to want to check to make sure that those quiz questions actually have the images showing. We've had several faculty migrate, whether they're using assignments, tests, surveys, whether they're using tests and quizzes, and then they realize their images aren't showing. So if you don't know what they are offhand, you're going to have to go through each quiz question to double check that any image, like a picture or a graph, a chart that you're quizzing your students on, actually shows for the students. And this might mean that you might need to relink that image because it's still trying to connect back to Lalima, and we're no longer in Lalima land. So you would need to go to your Manage Files area here and link your image that's in Manage Files in Lamaku to your quiz question here. And our final task today is just going through the various settings in quizzes to be aware of what they are. When I click on quizzes, and I don't have any quizzes, this is what I'll see. So to start creating quizzes, go ahead and click the New Quiz button. And on the right side, similar to assignments and discussions, you'll see a series of settings. So if I expand these, I see the typical start and end dates. I see time limits for a quiz, as well as other quiz settings. I have my attempts and completion panel as well. And lastly, I have the evaluation and feedback, so how you want to display grades to your students. So just take a look, get familiar with these. If you have specific questions about quizzes, contact your instructional designer. And then something to note is if you do need to provide accommodation for students, you would click here under Special Access. And if I look at the various settings, I can just scroll down and decide if I want to provide additional days, additional time, or additional attempts to these users that I would then program into the system. So that was quizzes. We had 4 tasks. If you're all done with your 4 tasks on quizzes, then you are done for the day, and we have one more challenge to go in our series. So stick with us.